As Colorado prepares to mark 6 months since the pandemic hit our state, a warning this weekend.
We don't want to see a repeat of the surges that we have seen following other holiday weekends.
The nation's leading doctors pleading with everyone to avoid gatherings and mask up.
Just because they're a neighbor does not mean they couldn't be positive.
And the heat will stick with us through Labor Day, but it won't last.
It's a dramatic change, a very strong cold front set to hit.
Our first look at some metro snow in the forecast. Denver7 News starts now. Good morning and thanks for joining us on Denver7 News at 11. I'm Molly Hendrickson. Tomorrow marks 6 months since Colorado reported its first case of coronavirus. And since then, the state has conducted more than 1 million tests, finding more than 58,000 positive cases. About 7,100 of those patients needed hospital care, and sadly, more than 1,900 people died after contracting the virus. We asked Colorado's chief medical officer what we've learned about the coronavirus in the last 6 months.
We learned that with the right kind of social distancing, people minimizing their contact at work and with their family, if we protected people who were older and at higher risk for complications, if we had the right kinds of policies like wearing masks, doing things outdoors, we could actually bend the curve for what could have been a terrible, terrible time.
Some of the things doctors have learned have shed more light on exactly which patients need to be on ventilators. We've also found treatments like remdesivir, which helps hospitalized patients recover more quickly, and certain steroids that can help save some patients' lives. But there's still so much to learn, including clarity about how this virus transmits from person to person and how it'll affect flu season. As we kick off the Labor Day weekend, health officials fear another holiday weekend could bring a surge in COVID infections. And while we hear these warnings every holiday, experts say this one is more critical than the rest.
We don't want to see a surge under any circumstances, but particularly as we go on the other side of Labor Day and enter into the fall, we want to go into that with a running start in the right direction. We don't want to go into that with another surge that we have to turn around again.
Officials warn people to stay vigilant, wear masks, social distance, avoid crowds, and keep any gatherings outside. And Lisa, Labor Day is the unofficial end of summer, and the heat will stay with us through Monday, but a storm could bring a big change come Tuesday. Everybody's watching Tuesday.
It is true. We are looking at a big change at that point right now. But Molly, gorgeous this afternoon. And we are kicking off the weekend with blue skies and some really pretty weather. Low 80s already in Denver. It's a big warm up. It's about 7 to 10 degrees warmer than what we saw at the same time yesterday at the same point. So if you're heading out of town, heading up into the mountains, you're going to find dry conditions, but lots of sunshine, and it's going to get hot. Right now, from low 80s to highs this afternoon that will likely be in the low to mid 90s. We've got Denver at 92, same thing in Greeley, and more near triple-digit heat on the western slope this afternoon, 97 in Grand Junction. So 90s through Monday, rain and potentially even some snow here in town on Tuesday. Last year, our first snowfall was on October 10th, so this is obviously going to be a lot earlier. We'll take a closer look at that storm next week and just how cold it's going to get coming up.
We'll see you then. Thanks, Lisa. A traffic headache to kick off Labor Day travel. CDOT crews are working to reopen I-70 westbound just past the tunnel after a serious crash. Several vehicles were involved in this wreck and multiple people are in the hospital. Right now, CDOT does not know when the highway will reopen. The detour takes you across Loveland Pass. One of the oldest working ranches in Colorado has survived the Grizzly Creek fire in Glenwood Canyon. Tomorrow, Bear Ranch will reopen. Several hundred acres of the ranch burned in the fire, but firefighters camped at the ranch, preventing damage to any of the buildings there. Well, tomorrow it will reopen to tourists for horseback riding, ATV tours, cookouts, and other activities. So let's get to the latest on firefighting efforts at Colorado's 4 major wildfires, starting with Grizzly Creek. It is now 83% contained after scorching more than 32,000 acres. The largest fire in state history is now 87% contained. The Pine Gulch fire north of Grand Junction has burned more than 139,000 acres. And progress is moving slower at 2 other fires. The Williams Fork fire west of Winter Park is just 10% contained at more than 12,000 acres. And the Cameron Peak fire burning in Poudre Canyon outside Fort Collins is only 6% contained. It's burned nearly 24,000 acres. Coronavirus is making our intense wildfire season even more difficult. More than 24 firefighters working the Cameron Peak fire may need to quarantine after one firefighter tested positive for the virus. This is the fourth positive test among firefighters working in Poudre Canyon after 3 other cases were confirmed less than 2 weeks ago. About 25 firefighters will now be tested, and any positive results will mean a 2-week quarantine. More than 800 firefighters are battling the Cameron Peak fire. Investigators still don't know how it started. Overnight, police shot and killed the man wanted in the fatal shooting of a far-right Trump supporter in Portland last weekend. U.S. Marshals in Washington moved to arrest Michael Raynell for the shooting, killing him after they say he pulled a gun and threatened officers. In an interview with Vice News, he implied that he shot Aaron Daniels out of self-defense, saying he was certain he and others would have been killed if he hadn't have acted. 7 police officers in Rochester, New York are suspended as the state attorney general investigates the death of Daniel Prude. Prude was experiencing a drug-induced mental break when officers put him in handcuffs, placed a bag over his head, and used force to hold him on the ground until he stopped breathing. Doctors declared him brain dead, and he died at the hospital in March. The medical examiner ruled this as a homicide. Rochester's mayor says she was misled about the incident for months, and the city failed Prude. Rescue teams in Beirut resumed their search efforts for survivors today after miraculous signs of life nearly a month after a devastating explosion nearly leveled the city. A machine that can detect a heartbeat signaled rescuers to an area of the rubble. So far, no survivors have been found. The blast at the city's port claimed at least 180 lives, wounded thousands of others, and caused destruction all across the city. Here in Colorado, officials are asking everyone to test their homes for a cancer-causing gas. With many of us spending more time at home, testing for radon is even more important. It is an odorless, colorless gas that occurs naturally in Colorado soil.
In Colorado, about half the homes have higher radon levels than the EPA recommended level of 4 picocuries per liter. So if you do test and you see that you have higher than that, which is not unusual, then you probably want to do some mitigation.
Officials say you should do a test whether you rent or own. You can order a testing kit for $15 on the state health department's Radon website. And even if you already have a mitigation system in your house, state officials say you should test again to make sure you're under the recommended level. A temporary ban on evictions takes effect today. The CDC order says eviction bans can be an effective public health measure to prevent the spread of communicable diseases like coronavirus. But when Denver7 asked Colorado Governor Jared Polis about the order, he questioned its validity.
The order has not yet been finalized nor officially published, so we're not able to assess what it means yet. It's more of a press release or concept level at this point. So until we see what the particulars are, it's hard for us to assess whether this can help Colorado tenants or whether it's empty words and empty promises.
Meanwhile, the governor says the state is working on other housing solutions. That includes extending the time renters have to get current on rent payments from 10 to 30 days. Only then can the eviction process begin, and it appears to be helping. The Colorado Apartment Association says eviction rates are at an all-time low. The CDC order protects people making less than $99,000 per year from being evicted and couples who make less than $198,000 per year. The order lasts through the end of the year. Both Denver and Boulder offices are closed today as the city's furlough staff to make up some of the losses in revenue caused by the pandemic. Boulder has 6 furlough days planned this year. Denver has 8. Denver is also cutting the budget across the city to make up for a $226 million shortfall.
We are asking agencies to identify 7.5% savings in their budgets. We are already beginning a process by which we are implementing that savings.
Several metro area cities furloughed employees for several weeks, including Aurora, Littleton, and Broomfield. Emergency services like police and fire will not be affected. A wake-up call for the Nuggets as they begin round 2 of the NBA playoffs. The LA Clippers wiped the floor with the Nuggets in Game 1, 120-97. The boys didn't get much rest after winning a grueling series with the Jazz Tuesday, and they won't have much time to recoup the series either. Game 2 tips off tomorrow at 7.